The New Balance Furon 3.0 might be the best New Balance boot ever, but is it as good as the competition? That's what we're going to find out in today's video. What's going on, guys? Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you my review plus on-feet video of the brand New Balance Furon 3.0 Pro. This is the third generation in the Furon line, and it's basically 90% all new. There are some similarities to the previous Furon 2.0, but like I said, mostly everything has changed, and I would argue for the better. So we're going to go over all the details and tech specs in today's video, take a closer look at the general aesthetics and colorway of the shoe, which is particularly unique, as well as take a look at how these things fit and feel on feet. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around and watch the entire video, and if you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen, or you can click the first link down below in the description. That'll take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick these guys up below their normal $200 retail price. Included with the boots inside the box is this boot bag with the New Balance football logo there on the front. And it does have a seal at the top, but not strings, so you can wear it like a backpack. It's nice to get this as an extra, but admittedly, the quality is on the cheaper side. Before we get into the specifics of the new Furon 3, let's talk about the history of the New Balance Furon, which is basically their speed boot line, kind of competing against shoes like the Nike Mercurial Vapor 11 and the Adidas X line, be it the X17.1 or the X17 Plus Pure Speed. So, the original Furon was a shoe that I quite simply did not like at all. I didn't think it was very good. The upper was very hard, it was plasticky, they felt too rigid, they just weren't very comfortable whatsoever. I know a lot of people had the same experience that I did. The Furon 2.0 was essentially a complete redesign in terms of what they did with the upper, but it was also very, very basic. Definitely a huge improvement, but the mesh-based synthetic just wasn't up to par with other shoes at that $200 price point. With the New Balance Furon 3.0, they have, of course, maintained a very similar design to the sole plate and stud pattern. That's kind of been a common characteristic with each new generation of Furon, although there have been some tweaks made. But again, the big redesign here is the upper, which is still a mesh-based synthetic, but a mesh-based synthetic that we've really never seen before. So in that regard, it is unique in comparison to anything else out there at the moment. The upper on the Furon 3.0 is described as a TPU polyester mesh. So it has a typical yarn type material, and it also has a plastic for the makeup of this upper. You can see up close, it definitely has a knitted appearance, and when you run your finger along the top, you do feel the texturing of what is essentially exposed knit, but instead of just being a standard yarn without any kind of top layer, because there is TPU plastic within the yarn as well, or within the knit, I should say, it does have a little bit of a slight kind of grippiness to it, which is definitely noticeable on the ball. It is also a padded material, so it's got a little bit of softness to it, especially to the touch, and it's very, very flexible. So the break-in time, especially in the forefoot area, is nice. It feels super flexible, it moves nicely with your feet, but that does have some downsides in regards to responsiveness and general stability that we'll talk about a little bit later in the video. Now you also notice around the toe, in the forefoot, and around the New Balance branding here, that you do have their Phantom Fuse technology, which you can see the branding right there, which is something that has carried over from previous Furon models. Essentially all it is a top layer of fused polyurethane material to add structure in kind of the high stress zones on the upper. So again, around the forefoot, the toe box, the midfoot where you want a little bit stability. So the end result here is a material that as a base material is very soft and very flexible, but because pretty much the entirety of the midfoot is made up of this Phantom Fuse, which adds a lot of structure to the upper, you end up with kind of a plasticky material towards the heel, a slightly soft but still pretty firm material towards the midfoot, and then a very, very soft, almost sock-like feeling type material in the forefoot. So in that regard, it's a little bit unbalanced in terms of the flow across the entire foot. The lacing system runs through the middle of the shoe, pretty straightforward setup as you can see, but with the laces removed, you can get a better look at the tongue, which is made from a thin elasticated mesh type material, the same material that lines the inside of the shoe, but it also has some fuse reinforcements. You can see the little triangular cutouts there towards the bottom, and then the top part of the tongue has some memory foam backing it just to cut down on lace bite where you're going to be tying the the knot on your shoes. Also, the tongue is fully independent at the top half, but actually attached to the sides of the shoe at the bottom half. So it does have this partial one-piece construction, which doesn't really feel like a one-piece upper, but what's nice about it being attached at the bottom is that the tongue is not going to slide from side to side when you are wearing the shoes. A return element from the Furon 2.0 is the bonded Tpu Collar area. Of course, the shoe is a standard low cut, does come a little bit higher up at the back, but for the most part it does feel like a standard low cut shoe, and you can see the design is quite unique in that it is actually inspired by a sprinter's spike, which makes a lot of sense for a soccer cleat style application where you're going to be doing, wow. It's inspired by a sprinter's spike, which does make sense considering that you will be doing a fair amount of sprinting in this particular sport. The only downside of this, and the main reason why I'm not a huge fan of it, is because of this design. It does look very clean around the edges, but you definitely have a lack of padding on the inside of the shoe. The idea here is obviously to be as light and minimalist as possible, but because of this, the only padding you get in the heel liner is this little strip of inserted foam underneath the liner that basically rings all the way around the top of the heel and ankle area, but on the inside, the very base of the heel, it's pretty much just this thin mesh and backed by, sitting on top of, the internal plastic heel liner. So the issue with this is that it's difficult to get just the right fit. With a little bit of padding, it can kind of compress and fit your heel more closely, even if it's not an exact match in terms of the overall shape. With this, if your heel is slightly too small or just not the same shape as this shoe, there is more potential for slippage, there is more potential for discomfort. And while I personally didn't have too many issues in regards to heel slippage, I can't say that the heel lockdown in this particular shoe was up to par with a lot of other shoes at the same price range and in the same category. So it definitely does work. It's an interesting concept, but it is not my favorite way of doing a heel liner. For the first time ever, the insole is fully removable in a top-end Furon boot. It's still made from the same Revlite foam that we saw in the previous generation, which is basically a foam that you will find in a lot of New Balance running shoes. Has a more responsive kind of bouncy sensation in comparison to a lot of foams that would generally be a little bit softer than this in most other soccer cleats. What I really like about this though is it's got a good thickness, there are some perforations to it, and there isn't a physical liner on the surface. It's just straight up foam with some added texturing to prevent slippage on top of that insole, which it seems to do pretty effectively. The fact that there isn't a liner either means that you're not going to have any wear on the surface of the insole, and it's not going to absorb any kind of moisture, so it's going to maintain a nice lightweight feel and obviously be ready to go and dry very, very quickly. So overall, an above average insole. Really like what they did with this. The sole plate and stud pattern has been tweaked from the previous generation. First off, the shoe is actually built on a new last, so the shape isn't identical to the previous generation, which of course we'll talk about in more detail in just a second. The base material for the sole plate, which is basically everything that's not pink, is a standard TPU plastic that has some decent thickness to it, and then the pink part that you see that's kind of inlaid through the forefoot and midfoot and even in the heel area is a nylon material to add some structure, rigidity, and a little bit of responsiveness in terms of the bend back and I guess kind of spring back sensation you would get, although the amount of stiffness there is not enough to where you're actually going to notice that spring back effect. It's just there mostly to add structure to what would otherwise be a fairly flimsy sole plate. So overall, the sole plate feels quite good. The stud pattern, this being the firm ground variation, is very unique, and I actually do like the way it feels quite a bit. Normally on previous Furon models, we only had 2 studs at the back, which you still kind of only have 2 studs. They're regular length studs, but then you also have these kind of half studs in this place where you would normally have kind of a 4-stud layout, just for that little bit of extra stability, although I didn't really have any issues with just 2 studs at the rear. So that's a little bit interesting. And then again, you kind of have the same concept in the forefoot area. The studs are positioned in kind of all the push-off points under your feet, so it does make a lot of sense. Kind of an unusual layout in terms of there not being a real pattern here. They're kind of just spaced out in the spots where you need that grip, where you're going to be pushing off, which again, I like the concept. The studs themselves are kind of like a triangular shape, so it is more of a bladed style stud pattern in terms of being fairly aggressive when digging in. And then again, they've incorporated these half studs to kind of fill in the gaps around the stud pattern, which is really interesting. And again, it's pretty effective. You're also going to find these very fine teeth towards the tip of the toe here. Something we have seen before from Nike on some of their models. Is that really effective in terms of adding traction to the shoe? Really, really difficult to say, but again, it's a cool idea, and the stud pattern overall, again, I would say is above average. The last performance characteristic to talk about in regards to the Furon 3.0 is the weight of the shoe, which, like I mentioned, this is kind of aiming to compete with the Mercurial Vapor 11, the X 17.1, shoes that are around $200 and weigh around 7 ounces or less, depending on which specific model you go for. In a size 9.5 US, the New Balance Furon 3.0 weighs in at 9.1. So it is, by modern soccer cleat standards, not very light at all. They're not gonna feel heavy on your feet by any means, but they are at least 2 ounces more than the competition, which for this style of shoe, with a thinner upper that's gonna provide more of a barefoot sensation, that is pretty much unacceptable. So again, if they're trying to compete against the big brands, the Mercurial lines, the X lines, being at 9.1 ounces, I think is just far too heavy. Aesthetically, I think the shoe itself looks okay, but the launch colorway is definitely interesting. This green color is called Military Dark Triumph, which is basically like an army green. And I have to say, I really, really like this base color on a soccer cleat in general. I would like to see this on other shoes from other brands. Army green, I think, is just a cool color in general. They contrast that with what's called Alpha Pink. So neon pink you see for the liner, you see it as an accent within the tongue, you see a little bit of striping around the outside of the shoe as well as around the back. And then the New Balance N on the outside of the shoe is white, the one on the inside is pink, which again kind of looks like a mistake to me. I just don't like the way that that looks. I feel like the logo should be the same color on either side. And then you have this neon green color as a highlight at the heel, which I think is just too much. If they just kept it the pink, the green, and the white, maybe it would have been okay, but with the extra neon green you have here at the bottom of the shoe towards the heel, and then pretty much the entire sole plate with more pink as an accent, I just think there's a little bit too much going on. It's a little bit of a busy design for my liking, but I'm curious to see the shoes in more colorways. Anyways though, let me know what you guys think of the aesthetics of this shoe down below in the comments. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Why or why not? As you can see, I swapped out the stock army green laces for some bright green reflective SR4U replacement laces, which accent pretty much perfectly with all the green accents you have in the heel, as well as the sole plate. And since you have so many colors going on, making the shoes a little bit brighter actually looks pretty good. So if you are interested in a pair of replacement laces for yourself, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. There'll be a little pop-up on screen as well as a link down below in the description. So if you're interested in a pair, be sure to go ahead and check that out. On feet, the Furon 3.0 is interesting to say the least. Like I talked about earlier, this is based on a brand new last, so it's a different shape from the Furon 2.0, and that's very, very noticeable when you put these on. Not in a great way. I actually kind of like the way the Furon 2 fit, not so much in the heel, given that this does have the same design as well. I still have a problem with it, but the actual forefoot toe box area is really the main issue here. You can see it when I move around, how much extra material there is. It's got a very, very sloppy feel to it, and because of the type of material and there being no reinforcement here, it just feels unresponsive. It lacks stability in the forefoot, and it just doesn't match what you get in the midfoot, which is actually pretty good lockdown and a nice close wrap around your foot. So the material, you can see all the folds, all the extra volume that I have on the inside of the shoe. And I guess if you had a much higher volume fit, maybe you'd like the way that these feel. But I think for most people, especially if you're comparing it to other top-end shoes in the $200 price range in the speed category, those are gonna fit much more snug, much more securely, offer a much more responsive feel than what the Furon 3.0 has on offer. The midfoot, like I said, with that Phantom Fit overlay, feels really, really good, nice and secure. That's probably the best fitting part of the shoe itself. And then again, going back on the heel, because it is basically just a heel counter acting as the entire heel liner, there's no extra padding back there. There is a lot of extra volume. So unless your heel fits exactly the same shape as the heel counter on the inside of the shoe, which for most people that's not going to be the case, there's that little bit of extra volume where your heel will slip around, which I personally do have an issue with. So again, not the best lockdown in the heel area, which is definitely a bummer, especially for a top-end model. That's partially what you pay the higher price for, is a better fit. So what you end up with It's kind of a sloppy fit in the heel, a very snug, secure, good quality fit through the midfoot, and then that sloppier fit through the forefoot toe box area once again, which again is just kind of an unusual way of doing things. As far as width is concerned, this is the regular width version of the Furon 3.0. They do offer a wide fit version as well, but being the regular fit model, I would say that these are by no means narrow or super tight fitting. They've actually got a pretty decent amount of width to them, to the point where I would say that these will fit just about anybody. So I'm not sure how much wider the wide fit version would actually feel, but width wise, there's a lot of width, especially in the heel and especially in the forefoot toe box area. As far as the sizing is concerned, I'm wearing a size 9.5 US, which as you guys can see, my toe is right at the very end. Pretty much no extra space whatsoever. It's the same size that I wore in previous generations of the Furon, half a size bigger than my usual size because these do typically run a half size small. And I would say the fit in the length is pretty much perfect. So if you are looking to order a pair of these for yourself, I would recommend going a half size up in order to achieve the best possible fit. So to sum up the Furon 3.0, it's kind of a 50-50 shoe to me. There's things they did really well, and there's things that definitely need some major improvement. In terms of what I like, I think this upper has a lot of potential. Where it is kind of more open in the forefoot, it's soft, it's flexible, it has that barefoot sensation, but a little bit of padding to it as well, although it does lack structure. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Nemesis 17.1, although not quite on the same level. I think they have a great insole with their Revlite foam, and the stud pattern and sole plate I think is quite good as well. Where the shoe needs major improvement is in the fit category, both in terms of stability and just the overall fit. This heel, while a cool concept, while it looks very cool, I don't think it is the most effective way in terms of getting the best possible fit out of a soccer cleat in general. Something with a more traditional padded heel liner I think would fare a lot better in terms of overall lockdown and just getting a better fit for most people. And the weight, that is a really big thing. At 9.1 ounces in 2017 for a high-end soccer cleat, speed boot or not, that is quite simply too heavy. If you're not in the 7-ounce weight range now with your top-end models, a lot of people are not going to consider your shoes. And I'm not saying that 9 ounces is too heavy to wear in 2017, but people want thinner, they want lighter, especially in this category. So at 9 ounces or more, it just isn't light enough. Anyways, if you guys are interested in a pair of these for yourself, again, you can click the little eye in the corner of the screen or the first link down below in the description. That'll take you to the review page on my website where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $200 retail price. If you have any questions regarding this shoe, let me know down below in the comments and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all of my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.